Welcome into the Cards Central Postgame show here on STL Sports Central. He is Ethan Hannaford. I am Chris Pelikan. Cards lose their sixth straight game by a final of 3-2 in Milwaukee. Ethan, I don't know really where to start with this thing. Lots of different areas we can go. Putrid offense, untimely hitting, pitching that just isn't good enough. You know, the floor is yours to start things off tonight. Where would you like to go as the Cardinals? A lot of the goodwill that we felt for a lot of this season is seemingly evaporating over the course of the last week. It's not all gone, but would love your thoughts on where we go as an organization here right now with six straight losses on the tally board.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, it's frustrating, right? I mean, anytime that you lose six straight, you're going to be frustrated, right? I think that as from an organizational standpoint, I don't know if I'm saying that you're jumping off the cliff yet. No one was certainly raising up the World Series trophy after a 19-8 May, so I don't think it's necessary to be jumping off the cliff after six straight losses in June. Does that mean that you aren't starting to get a little bit concerned? No, but I think that it's part of just riding the wave out of having a really young offense, some young pieces on the pitching side as well. It's part of riding the wave. So is there definitely some frustrations, some concerns even? Absolutely. This is the kind of baseball game tonight that if you aren't going in already with a 5-game losing streak, you look at the way that this game was played as a whole, and it was a really well-played baseball game. I mean, the Cardinals actually out-hit the Brewers. Erick Fedde did a nice job. Steven Matz looked good. There was a couple of really tough calls that could have gone either way. If that play at second on the base hit from Contreras, was it Contreras? No, I don't remember who it was. Churio maybe, Contreras, whoever it was. If that is called out in live time, then that completely changes the narrative of the game. It was 50-50 call, but in their eyes it was inconclusive evidence for them to be able to overturn it. This game really came down to an impactful sixth inning where the Brewers were able to get 2 runs. Obviously, the Cardinals offense continues to have its struggles. Freddie Peralta's been good this year, but you have to manufacture more runs than they were able to tonight. When you get the quality of pitching that they were able to tonight, in large part, you have to be able to pick your guys up. They weren't able to do that tonight. Which is frustrating because when you look at the two, pitching and hitting, the hitting has been better than the pitching as of late. Doesn't mean the hitting's been out of this world, right? But it's still been middle of the pack when you look at league-wide what they're doing since the start of June. Frustrating loss tonight for the Cardinals. Like I said, overall, if you aren't considering the 5 games that they had lost prior and the pressure that puts on, the magnifying glass, the microscope that you have the team under right now, it's really not a badly played game. It was a good baseball game. It was a competitive baseball game. But because you do have those things, it just adds on to the frustration. The fan base is losing their minds, as we're seeing here in the comments a little bit. I get it, guys. I understand the frustration right now. Tough for the Cardinals to not be able to pull this one out when they got good starting pitching again. And now they're going to have to rely. On the back 3 to try and get the job done and even up this series. It's a tall task for the Cardinals to do right now. And what are they now? 3-9 in the month of June. Yeah. It's definitely not off to a good start in the month of June. That is for sure.
Very, very true. He is Ethan Hannaford. I'm Chris Pelikan. We'll be steering the ship for the next 40 minutes or so as we break down the Cardinals' 6th straight loss. They lose 3-2 to the Brewers. Folks, we need your comments in this thing as well. And Ethan, as he pointed out, they're coming in fast and furious. This is what we want. Jump into that YouTube chat. Let us know your thoughts on where this team stands on the game tonight. We need you to do that. And while you're down there, please hit the like and subscribe buttons and be a part of the family here at STL Sports Central. So, Ethan, it's like you said, not a terribly played game. I mean, that's I think we can look at it that way. You and I have done a lot of shows, and we've talked about, I don't know if I'd say breaks the team's gotten over the course of this year, but they've seemingly had things work out for them to get to a point where they were at one point in time, 8 games over 500. And, I made the comment a lot that good teams find ways to win games like this or like that or what, and the bad teams find ways to lose. I'm not sitting here saying that the Cardinals are a bad team, but it seems like they're finding these different ways to lose these games. And I think you got to start with this offense right now. And if we were going into this season and the offense had not been something that was of concern to the general fan base and people around baseball, it'd be one thing. But I think we can sit here and look at it and say that the first third of the season was maybe a little bit more of a pleasant surprise. Do you think what we're seeing, 4 runs scored over the course of the last 3 games, struggles with timely hitting, is this more the norm? Is this what we will be probably seeing over the course of the next 90 games or so? Or do you think that what we've seen over the course of the first 60 games of the season is more what this team really is offensively?
Can the answer be none of the above? Because I mean, when you look at what this team is, when you look at what this lineup is right now, say what you want about Lars Nootbaar. He's been around for several years, but has he ever played a full healthy 162?
Yeah.
Like, he's missed a lot of time to injury. So you could, I haven't looked at his service time of recent, right? But this is a guy that I think it looks like right now is still having to put some pieces of his game together. We all know the slump that he's going through right now. I have some numbers on that I'll throw up in a little bit. Mason Wynn, obviously we know how young he is. Herrera, Burleson, Gorman, Paje, Ciani. I mean, these are guys that are really young. The large majority of this lineup, excluding Wilson Contreras and Nolan Arenado, is really young.
Yep.
And what comes with youth in your lineup? Growing pains, right? I mean, like, look at the seasons that Nolan Gorman and Jordan Walker had in 2023, their rookie years. They were really good in large part. 2024, a different story for both of them in their sophomore years. I think that Cardinal fans have a little bit of PTSD because of how things went, how things were navigated with those two in year number 2 of their career. Understandably, I am optimistic that we're not going to be seeing the same thing just because we're seeing Victor Scott II, Lars Nootbaar, some of these guys cool off, go into some slumps. I'm optimistic that the Cardinals aren't going to, these guys aren't going to go into the same spiral for a whole year, right? That Gorman and Walker did, because I'm more confident in Brant Brown than I was in the prior coaching personally. I think that the Cardinals have a good system as far as developing these young guys. I know that fans get really pissed off with Ollie and how he, some of his post-game comments and some of his usage of these guys. But with a young team like this, confidence is such a big thing in making sure that from a player's perspective, that your manager is bought in and invested in you. And Ollie, I think, has done a really good job of that up to this point. He's providing a lot of patience, right? I mean, I know that everyone raised their expectations for this team in May. Everyone did, pretty much. This team went from what people were probably pretty consistently saying this was anywhere between a 76 and 86 win team, probably somewhere in there. I think most people probably would have said that based off of what they saw in May, it was going to be an above 500 team. And most people were saying this is a playoff team easily, right? Maybe this is giving us a little bit more of a back down to earth expectation for what this team is. And we're reminding ourselves of, just because these guys came out red hot offensively in the first couple of months of the year, that doesn't mean that's what they're going to be for the rest of their careers or even for the rest of the season. It is a game of adjustments. The league is adjusting to some of these guys. Eventually, the Cardinals' young guys are going to have to learn how to adjust back. That's the game of baseball. And that's why, sophomore slumps are a real thing. They do exist. Sure. Now, in today's day and age, when you have so much footage to be able to use, so many numbers and different statistics, and in today's day and age of baseball, with the amount of StatCasts and all these things, we're finding out information about these guys faster than ever before. So being able to catch up to them is more realistic than ever before, and being able to make the adjustments to try to get guys out. And that's what you're seeing right now for a lot of these guys. The part that sucks, is the most unfortunate, is it feels like with a lot of them, it's happening at the same time. In an ideal world, right, you're able to have, it's not all happening at once. That way things don't feel like they're falling apart. because it does feel a little bit right now, I imagine, for fans like things are falling apart. But this is what comes with riding the wave of having a young team. You're going to feel the highs at times when they get going. You're going to be excited about the future, but you also have to be able to give them the time and have the patience, right, to allow them to work through the failure, to work through the mistakes. That is what we're actively walking through right now with this St. Louis Cardinals offense.
All content here on STL Sports Central is presented by DraftKings. Also, Cards Central Postgame is brought to you by Hot Shots, St. Louis's home for all the games, all the time since 1990. Find yours at hotshotsnet.com. And as I mentioned, by DraftKings, the crown is yours. Ethan, you touched on Lars Nootbaar a little bit, and I want to dive a little bit deeper. I know you mentioned you have some statistics. I got a couple. I bet they look pretty similar with Lars Nootbaar. 0 for 5 with 4 strikeouts tonight. He is now 1 for his last 32 at the plate. We talk about inconsistency, which I get, which, like, again, for the younger guys, Lars Nootbaar's been around a little bit. Lars Nootbaar's 2 years away from a major free agent decision with this team.
Yeah.
I think, I sit here and we look at this and it's like Lars Nootbaar's profile is exactly what I think you want for a leadoff hitter. Mm-hmm. The guy's going to walk 10% of the time. He's only batting .226 at this point in time, but he's still got an on base right around .330. What Lars Nootbaar is as a person, as a profiled player, seems like it's a great guy to build an outfield around, a guy who you can put at the top of your lineup. You're going to feel good about his consistency. And this is a spell it's more than just a slump at this point in time. I mean, he is very much struggling to see the ball, to put the ball in play. The strikeouts are troubling for a guy who you want to be at the top of your lineup. Where is your concern factor with as it pertains to Lars Nootbaar right now?
Yeah, I'll say this: he has not looked good at the plate, right? I mean, when this first started, it was a lot of the underlying numbers looking good and him just not getting on base, right? But there's a certain point, right, when the numbers don't follow, when the production doesn't follow, that you begin to press a little bit. And it starts to wear on you mentally. And as Lars Nootbaar's production fell off a little bit, what followed, right, was the quality of at-bats, where we saw the walk rate start to drop and the strikeout rate started to climb. It's no secret that the strength that Lars Nootbaar brings is his ability to recognize and understand the strike zone. When he's at his best, better than anyone in baseball.
Yep.
But when you get so pressed mentally, right, from the lack of production, you begin to question things. And this isn't just me saying this. This is like Ollie Marmol's talked about this on the Gas House Gang. Like this is repeated stuff straight from the manager. And so when you're questioning things, right, like everything looks off. And right now, Lars Nootbaar, his biggest strength is all of a sudden become his weakness, right? We're seeing the strikeout numbers more up than they ever have been in this small of a stint for him. He's chasing stuff out of the zone. He is leaving stuff that is in the zone, right? It looks to a certain extent from what we saw from Nolan Gorman before they sent him down last year, where it just looks like there's very little awareness of the zone right now. Is that concerning? Yeah, of course it's concerning. But what I'm more concerned about with him, there's people in the chat saying send Lars Nootbaar down to AAA. Like, I don't think that's going to do anything for you. Am I to the point, right, where you're really going to have to start like, okay, we have to get him out of the leadoff spot because we have to have someone, we have to have someone that's going to be producing at the top of the lineup? Yeah, I'm about there because right now it just feels like, like you said, it's turning into a longer stretch where you're just getting no production out of the top of the lineup. I understand the mindset of be patient with these guys, let these things play out. But I think that perhaps moving a guy like him lower in the order would maybe take some of the pressure off of him. We know he's putting in a lot of work behind the scenes. Maybe that gives him the opportunity to not have as much pressure in those at-bats, to not be in those situations like he was tonight where he's the leadoff guy getting that fifth at-bat and is the lone guy for you two, and you end up with him in that big situation where you have the tying run in scoring position. And for Dylan commenting and saying not a single person said send Newt down. So look up in the chat here. Multiple people have said send Nootbaar down to AAA or move on from Nootbaar. That's people are saying that right now in the chat. So the point with him, right, is that like you're in this tough spot to where he just hasn't looked good at the plate, but AAA is not an option for him. It cannot be an option. For a guy like Lars Nootbaar, it's going to do nothing for you. The level of competition is so much different. The amount of quality coaching up here compared to in the minors is so different. The amount of information you have to be able to work with up here is so different. There is no reason whatsoever that he should be sent down to AAA. This is a guy that has provided a lot when he has been healthy throughout his career here. And I'm confident that he's still going to be able to do that. So, I would consider moving him down in the lineup at this point, especially if these struggles continue, because it's not just the lack of production. It's the quality of at-bats right now that's concerning me with Lars Nootbaar. And we've seen that when Lars Nootbaar gets on base, the Cardinals drive him in. And that is there's a huge difference in the Cardinals' success rate, right? When he gets on base and when he doesn't. They win games when he gets on base consistently, and they don't when he's not getting on base.
Well, let's be real about this too, Ethan. There is literally no one in the minor leagues who you could bring up at this point in time who's going to provide any sort of a spark. I mean, the outfield depth with this team right now is really, really, really bad based on Jordan Walker's injury. We don't know about Brendan Donovan's availability moving forward for a little bit, right? I mean, he's obviously an option in the outfield. So there are not, you hate to say it, and I think you might be right that the move might be to move him down in the lineup, but there isn't anyone in the minor leagues right now who you'd sit there and say, get him up here, let's play him every day because Nootbaar needs some time off. I just, the truth is that this team has sort of made its bed with its outfield, and, you got no options at this point in time. So again, I think you're right. You got to live and die with what you have. How would you reconfigure the lineup? Like if we're playing Ollie right now, which I don't know, is there somebody else who you think you could stick in that slot and feel good about what they'd be able to do versus what Nootbaar is doing? I mean, and I'm asking that because I really don't even, I mean, do you kind of go with the Kyle Schwarber mentality and try to stick a guy like Alec Burleson up there who can do the on base thing a little bit? Or, again, we've talked about Mason Wynn before. He seems to be feeling good. He found his stroke in the 2-hole. Like maybe that's not the right spot to move off of. I don't know. Is there somebody else in this lineup? I mean, do you put Victor Scott up there? Victor Scott, I'm starting to want to call him Pedro Serrano with that aversion to the curveball at this point in time. I mean, he seems like the book's out. McGill tonight throws a couple of curveballs that he very, very smartly lays off of, then gets 100 miles an hour and drives it back up the middle. I mean, there's not a fastball Victor Scott can't time, but boy, you were talking about StatCast in the books. I mean, it's clear that Victor Scott struggles against breaking stuff. So, I mean, like, is that a guy you stick at the top of the lineup? I mean, I don't know if there is somebody at this point in time that and I hate that we can't even, have these, well, this would be a good solution because I don't know. Is there a better solution at the top of the lineup right now?
It's a great question. And I think that it's hard to, when you consider Mason Wynn, right? Like you said, it's a guy that has finally, I don't want to say finally, right? But he has clearly figured things out in the 2 spot. He's cooled off a little bit as of late, but I don't know if anyone expected Mason Wynn to be a consistent 280 hitter, right? I think he's down to 260 right now. So he's an option. I understand bringing up last year's struggles in the leadoff spot, but at this rate, like he's developing so much as a hitter and he looks so much better at the plate this year than he does last year that I don't know if that necessarily matters. But what, does matter to me, right, is that he is hitting well in the 2 spot. So I don't know if I want to mess with that. Victor Scott is, just fresh out of an 0 for 20 something stretch. And you mentioned it, the book's kind of out on him right now. He's one of those guys that's actively working through and making adjustments. So I don't know if I want to put a young bat like him in a high pressure situation like that. It's a great question. I don't know if there's an answer right now. And perhaps that's why we're seeing Ollie Marmol continue to roll with Nootbaar in that spot, because it's almost just a roll with the punches. You have to figure it out and sink or swim with that guy there. So, it's a tough one because you don't feel like you have, exactly a strong answer right now. You mentioned no outfielders right now that are banging on the door to come up. I know some people are mentioning some different things in the chat. Just keep in mind, guys, anyone that you mentioned that you want brought up to perhaps, be in that spot, if you're mentioning them and they're not on the 40-man roster, you have to clear out a spot as well. So, I don't have the 40-man up right now. I know there's been several different names mentioned, but just keep that in mind that with every single person that you're saying you want to bring up that's not on the 40-man specifically, you have another conversation to have as to who is going to be DFA'd. I think that's why it took them so long to go with Andre Granillo and bring him on the 40-man, because you're figuring out who is going to be that guy. So clearly it worked out. They figured things out and what they had in Valade. But it's a tough situation right now with what the Cardinals have. There's clearly a lack of depth in some different spots. And right now, not having a clear leadoff guy during Lars Nootbaar's struggles. We know that Lars Nootbaar, when he is himself, is the perfect guy for a leadoff, in my opinion, at least, because of how well he does with plate discipline and getting on base. But right now, when you take away that part of his game, all of a sudden, the Cardinals have some problems at the top of the lineup.
Yeah, just so you're aware, the Cardinals do have 5 total outfielders on their 40-man. Jordan Walker, Victor Scott, Lars Nootbaar, Michael Ciani, and then the great Matt Koperniak. I'm sure people are probably mentioning Thomas Sajaci as an option, and he can play in the outfield. So that's, I guess that's a possibility at this point in time. But again, I mean, there is not somebody banging on the door, like you said, in the outfield that would make sense to get Nootbaar out of the lineup. Again, I think it's lack of options at this point in time is really where we're at with this whole thing. And that's and again, Nootbaar is a guy who is as close to a veteran as you're going to find, in that outfield at this point in time. And so, this is a guy who I'm sure is going to tell you he wants to work through this stuff.
Totally.
So again, I mean, I think he's probably got enough leash, and the team has too few options for this to really be a thing. Speaking of the option stuff, so Brendan Donovan's a really, really interesting case right now. And as you see this team struggle to scratch out runs, it's very obvious that they miss their offensive leader in Donovan, their 3-hole hitter. I mean, the guy who clearly has been the offensive MVP of this team this season. He's in a precarious spot. And I love that we can sit here, and we certainly want your thoughts on this in the YouTube chat. What do you do with Brendan Donovan? And again, we don't know the medical right now, right? We don't know exactly how bad that toe is, that sort of thing. But, here he is not playing, not going on the IL to where you could grab somebody else to bring up. And so JC would probably be the guy who'd come up and be playing a little bit. But, you stick Donovan on that 10-day IL and you lose him for another 5-6 days. What are your thoughts on those situations, and specifically this one with Donovan, Ethan, from the standpoint of, again, without knowing what we know about him physically, this limbo IL stuff seems to be a little bit of a tough pill, especially for a team that could probably use the reinforcements.
So it's a tough situation with Donovan, right? Because I don't know if originally they thought that he was going to miss as much time that, he has or may be. But there was an update on him prior to the game. Several different writers mentioned that he has a carbon fiber insert in to protect his toe. Derek Gould said he is going to push it hard today to see if he can return this weekend. The club is willing to give him until Tuesday, they have said. So playing this whole series shorthanded to avoid losing him for the next week. And then John Denton mentioned that he did take BP and grounders today and felt better. He'll repeat that on Saturday. But like I said, they're willing to give him until Tuesday in order to try and not lose him next week. So perhaps we see him this weekend, and we're not even talking about it. But right, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but also the hindsight is 2020. I don't think maybe they didn't have an idea going in right when he was taken out of that game and said, yeah, we need to lose him for 10 days. They're probably saying at that point that that's not something we can afford to do if it's just going to be a couple of days, because of how important he is to the lineup, to the defense, and to the structure of this team right now.
Yeah, I think they're going to give him every chance to play because we're hitting desperation time. I mean, they need his bat in the lineup. as long as it's not going to kill him at this point in time. So this is the Cards Central postgame show here on STL Sports Central. All content on STL Sports Central is brought to you by DraftKings. And DraftKings, let's download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use the code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports for new customers to play. $5 is going to get you $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
He is Ethan Hannaford. I'm Chris Pelikan. This is the Cards Central postgame show sponsored by Hot Shots. And Ethan, we spent the first 25 minutes of this fine program talking about the Cardinals and their offensive woes at this point in time. Kind of buried in that whole mess was a solid outing, I guess you could say, by Erick Fedde. Goes out in there, gives him 5 innings, strikes out 5, gave up 3 runs. I guess only one of those runs earned tonight. But Erick Fedde, again, sort of the story of the season, keeping his team in the game, giving his team a chance to win. I guess you can't hang a ton of this game on Erick Fedde. He went out there and pitched pretty well.
Well, there's a couple of things to mention. Well, first off, all 3 runs were earned, right? But there were a couple of them, right, that, like we mentioned earlier, we're down to really close calls that could have gone either way. I mean, the replays, to me, I feel like, especially the play at second, I thought that he was out off the replay. So did Chip and Brad on the broadcast, but because he was called safe initially, they didn't feel there was enough evidence to overturn it. We only got one replay of the play at the plate. Was that Frelick's fielder's choice? So, I mean, where Frelick scored at the plate, if maybe he's called out there, maybe we're looking at a different conversation here right now. So overall, I thought that Erick Fedde was pretty good, but all this considering that in the 4th inning, he took a bullet off of his right arm, right? I mean, like, that's something that we haven't mentioned yet, was that I thought that it was made an even more solid outing by Fedde because he was able to still stay in, work through, I'm sure, what was some serious pain in his left arm, right? His glove arm.
Yeah.
Went down immediately after that ball hit him. And you're looking at a situation, right, where he's through 3 1/3, 3 2/3, and you're like, oh boy, the Cardinals could be in serious trouble here. One, or if he's not able to continue, one, because they still have a long stretch of games where if they're having to go to the bullpen for the rest of this one, that's not good. But also now you're losing out on pitching depth, right? We know that the Cardinals have some pitching depth right now, but there's really not a lot. There's not a lot. We've said this before. After Michael McGreevy, there's nothing ready. There's nothing ready. So for all the people that are saying that, still, I've seen people saying it even today, that the Cardinals should trade guys or should have traded guys in the offseason or now. There's no depth if they do that. And one injury screws them. 2 injuries, and you're in trouble this season, even with what you have right now. So fortunate that Erick Fedde was able to stay in the game. I give him big kudos for being able to work through that. I thought in large part he looked pretty solid. Ran into a little bit of trouble, as mentioned there, in the 6th when he allowed those couple of runs. One of them was an inherited run allowed by Matz. So, Erick Fedde, I think, over his last several starts has looked a lot better. I mean, going back to even his last outing against the Dodgers, where he went 5 1/3 shutout. In large, he was cruising tonight up until he got hit on the arm. So Erick Fedde, I think, when you look at the numbers overall, has been one of your better pitchers this year. So that trade continues to look better and better the more that you see of Erick Fedde. So that's the main stuff I have to say about Fedde. I know you didn't get to see nearly as much, but what have your takeaways been from Erick Fedde and just what you've seen from him overall this year?
I mean, Ethan, you and I have talked about him a bunch, right? Like, he's the guy who is just, with every good start, is up in that trade value. I mean, he's a guy who's going to go out there and give you 5, 6 strong innings. He's just sort of a quality start guy, but he keeps you in the game. He's been fantastic. And again, you look at it from the standpoint of this is a team coming off 5 straight losses heading into tonight. You need pitchers to be stoppers. He gave this team a chance, right? He gave them a chance to win this game tonight. The offense just simply couldn't do enough of it. But I mean, like Erick Fedde is exactly what they traded for, right? I mean, I think that this is a guy with a history of, in his first stint with the Nationals, not so great, went over to Korea, learned how to pitch a little bit better, comes back with a cutter and a sweeper, and he's a different pitcher, and he's been everything the team needs, right? He's given you solid innings. And so, again, can't hang this one on Erick Fedde. You just, the pitching has been suspected, and this is an area that I think if you look at this losing streak, you can sit there and you can look at a couple of different options, a couple of different reasons. And, the starting pitching has not been nearly as good as it has in the past week as it was for the season before, the entire season leading up to this. But Erick Fedde is the one guy who I think has sort of avoided a lot of the hiccups that we're seeing from some of the other guys at this point in time. So, kudos to Erick Fedde, kudos to Steven Matz, who bounced back and pitched a nice game tonight. So again,
and Riley O'Brien. Thought Riley O'Brien looked really good out of the bullpen too. He's a guy that, there's been a lot of excitement about early in his time in St. Louis. So, hopefully the Erick Fedde, Riley O'Brien can continue to, or can start to cement himself into this Cardinals bullpen and be a little bit more of an impact piece. Last couple of outings have been promising, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm laughing a little bit about this too, because I think we maybe did the show last week after Fedde pitched against Yamamoto, and that was right when the onset of the 6-man rotation happened, and like they're only a turn through this 6-man rotation, but boy, it hasn't looked real good so far, Ethan. I don't know that we can per se blame it on the fact that everyone's getting an extra day rest, but are we looking at this thing and saying coincidence
with the 6-man? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
if it has to do with the 6-man?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's been the starting pitching has been really not very good since they announced they were going to go and do this, and here we are. And I'm kind of like, you and I both said these pitchers are all they're crazy. They're goofy. They're into their routines, and lo and behold, the routine has changed slightly for their benefit, we would think, but by the same token, the results haven't been great.
I don't know. I mean, like, you got to look at who's been struggling the most as of late, right? Andre Palante's, his struggles had, preceded the switch to the 6-man. Matthew Liberatore's had preceded the switch to the 6-man. Sonny Gray has been phenomenal in large part this year. He had a hiccup start. One start is not going to make me start to get concerned about him. Erick Fedde's been good. And Miles Michaelis, 1 start. So, I mean, there's a couple of guys you could say in the rotation this last time through didn't look good. That specifically the blow-up starts, right, where Sonny Gray and Miles Michaelis. I'm not letting one start, in my opinion, dictate if it's the 6-man or not. If there was a guy, right, that is so big on routine, right, it is Sonny Gray. So maybe perhaps odd coincidence right now, but he's such a pro's pro that, and we've seen him bounce back after bad starts all this year. This was his first blow-up start in probably a month, and prior to, I think he's had now 3 or 4 that you could probably consider blow-up, and his ERA is like under 0.5 in the start following blow-up starts for him. So we'll see if that continues for him. Some breaking news here on Cards Central Postgame. John Denton tweeting just a couple of minutes ago that Ollie Marmol confirmed that the team will be making a change at the top of the lineup tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
With the Cardinals facing Jose Quintana, lefty, Lars Nootbaar will not be at the top of the lineup. So we'll have to keep an eye out on who that is. I know we mentioned it a little bit, and perhaps the fans are happy. I imagine the fans are probably relieved and happy to see a change. I mentioned a couple of my guys. If it was up to you, who are you putting in at the leadoff spot tomorrow?
Well, are we if we're going to play lefty, right? Like, and we're going to try to have right-handed bats up there. I don't know at this point in time. I mean, like, I guess you got to go with Mason Wynn at the top at this point in time. I mean, are you going to try to load on right-handers tomorrow? I mean, is this going to be a deal where, I don't know exactly how they'll run the lineup with no Jordan Walker available. So I don't know that there's anyone else who makes any semblance of sense.
I agree.
Other than Wynn.
I think it has to be Mason.
That's
my guess.
Yeah, and I mean, is Newt going to be moving down in the lineup? Is he going to be taking the day off? I guess that's kind of the interesting thing, because again, I just think the options stink at this point in time. Michael Ciani, God love him, but I mean, this team needs offense right now, and Michael Ciani's not the guy who's, you look to offense for. I thought you were talking about John Denton. Our friend Derek Gould had a fun tweet during the game that I saw, and it went like this: the Cardinals are in a spot with their roster where their third catcher is pinch hitting for their center fielder, and that captures the situation succinctly. It's like, there's so much stuff happening with this team offensively, and Ali is searching for it anywhere he can get it. So again, I don't know what tomorrow's going to look like in the least bit, but it's got to be Wynn at the top, and I guess obviously, I think you got to keep Burley near the top of the lineup at this point in time. You got to keep Herrera and Contreras in the middle. But boy, it's a shame, and it's difficult. And I don't think you can go with Lars Nootbaar out of this lineup or near the top of it for a long spell, because again, he's kind of your only option at this point in time. So, I think we're clutching at straws to a degree, but when you lose 6 straight games, you got to do that sort of stuff. So
I'll go, just real quick, I was going to say, can we talk about Nolan Gorman for a second? He had a just 1 for 4 tonight, right? But I liked his at bat in the 9th against McGill.
Had a big time.
Ended up scoring a run. It's a small sample size, but we saw some good stuff from him at the end of the previous homestand that has me encouraged about where he is and some of the adjustments that he is making. We've mentioned plenty of times here some of the underlying the habits and the good things that he has been working on as far as just plate approach, discipline, and perhaps we're starting to see some of those good habits be shown in good production. So it is encouraging to see him at least get going a little bit with some playing time. What will be interesting is with Jordan Walker, who went 3 for 4 tonight in his rehab assignment, which is always good to see. But if he's not far away, right, then all of a sudden you're back in the same spot. What do you do with Nolan Gorman, with Alec Burleson hitting the way he is? Maybe you get, let's say that Brendan Donovan ends up back on Tuesday at the latest. Maybe you get a couple extra days of leeway, like where you don't have to have that question. If Donovan goes on the IL, then you have a very different conversation, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So I say all that to say, it looks like eventually we're going to be having that same conversation. Ollie Marmol's going to be in that same really tough spot of how do I find time consistently for Jordan Walker, Nolan Gorman, and Alec Burleson. With how many lefties you have right now, it feels like Jordan Walker has to be in there for both his offense, but also he's the best right fielder by far they have defensively. So I think he has to be in there almost every day. So once again, Ollie Marmol's going to be put in a really tough spot of where do I fit in Nolan Gorman every single day?
Yeah, and then you and I have talked about him probably more than we should.
Probably.
but what I will say about Gorman is, I still think that if this team wanted to be giving him the shot that they said they were going to, it's not that difficult. I mean, look at what this team is doing offensively right now. There are very few guys who are putting together great at bats every time out there. You have several guys in the lineup who are on the wrong side, who are closer to, almost closer to 40 than they are 30 in Contreras and Arenado. There's no reason that you can't give certain guys one day off every week just to keep them fresh and that sort of thing. And that's how you get Nolan Gorman his at bats, right? I mean, obviously, if you give Arenado a day off every week, there's one day there. If you give Wilson Contreras a day off and or figure something out, Burleson plays first base, Donovan goes to the outfield. There's so much that can happen with this team's flexibility. But I mean, like we've talked about, Nolan Gorman has really not done that much to earn that extra playing time. I mean, that's a true. Has he looked better lately? Absolutely. There's no two ways about it. And I think that they should continue to try to force him into the lineup, because once again, here we go, right? Runway, blah, blah, blah. We got to figure out whether or not Gorman's got any future with this team. I mean, I'm getting to be really, really leery of that concept, because I just think the fact that they don't try to get him at bats when everything is going right shows that I don't know that there's the faith in him that he's going to be a big part of this team. Positionally, it doesn't work beyond, the Arenado thing is what it is, right? I don't know that they're going to be able to trade him. I mean, like, short of eating a ton of cash with Arenado, his production is at a point where he's a negative value player versus that contract. And so if you can somehow get rid of Nolan Arenado, that's fantastic. Great. And then you got a spot for Gorman to play. I just don't think that's going to happen. Brendan Donovan seems to be settling in really, really nicely into second base as a fielder, offensively, and they have other ideas in the outfield, right? I think that they believe that a Scott, Jordan Walker, Lars Nootbaar outfield is what they want to build their team around. So again, you're just at this spot with Nolan Gorman where he's in somewhat of the prime years of his career and he's just floating around in limbo. And so again, I mean, like, I'll go back to what I said the last time we talked about Nolan Gorman. It seems to me that it's the right time to pursue something trade-wise with him. I don't know what the value is. I don't know if there is much value, but he's not a guy who makes a lot of money, and he is a guy with upside. So I don't know who would want somebody like him. But again, I just, you're 100% right when you say fast forward about 5 days from right now when Jordan Walker's back and presumably Brendan Donovan's back. And guess what? We're talking about Nolan Gorman starting 1 game a week again. So
yeah, exactly. I've seen some people saying, I think it was Jay Collin here said, have her move Herrera to full-time catcher for right now. He didn't say full-time, but he kind of implied that. And then Burleson and Gorman kind of mix and match as your DH. That's still not a lot of time for Nolan Gorman because Alec Burleson is producing, and with the way the lineup is performing right now, he needs to be in the lineup every single day. He's right now your best hitter. Like, I'm not saying overall he's the best hitter on the team, but right now he is your best hitter. The problem, right, and I know what people are going to say, but the problem is what Taylor says right here is that compared to Pedro Pages, Herrera is not at the level of Pedro Pages as far as just catching a game. People undervalue how important that is for being able to work with your pitching the way that Pedro Pages does. And people are going to say, well, the pitching has sucked lately, so that's on Pages too. Like, I already know that's what people are going to say as a result. And I guess my clap back to that would be, like, when you look at the large portion of this year, like, the pitching's been pretty darn good. It's in a little bit of a rough stretch here. I'm not saying that it is solely on your catcher. I'm saying your catcher plays a really big part in that. And I don't think anyone can argue that Ivan Herrera is at the level that Pedro Pages is defensively, and the work that he's doing with the pitching has been really important up to this point. So, I don't think that we're there yet. I know Pedro Pages is really struggling right now offensively. I get that that's an issue, but let's be honest here, guys. Like, out of the 1 through 9 in your lineup, the catcher should be the guy that you are least relying on for offense. So, in my opinion, like, that's the least of their problems is the catcher's position. So,
well, and I mean, like, I'll slam the door on Herrera catching. He doesn't work with the pitching staff nearly as well. He cannot throw anybody out. It is an open invitation for multiple stolen bases when Herrera catches. I think the team has figured out that it's a waste of time for Ivan Herrera to catch. He needs to focus on becoming as good of a hitter as he can. And I think that upside is tremendous. And you and I talked about this before too. I mean, if we're talking about flipping Nolan Gorman in a trade, which again, I don't know what his value is, but in my opinion, the smart move from a front office standpoint right now for the Cardinals is try to find a catcher with a little bit more offense. I mean, Pages has done a very nice job with this team. I'm gonna sit here and say though that for a team that is offensively deficient like this team, and I know that maybe not, they have not been that way the whole season, but I do think that a lot of the stats and whatnot, this team has overachieved from an offensive standpoint this year. You got to try to fill as many holes as you can. And I do like Pages. I think he's a bit overexposed as a guy who's going to catch 120 or 130 games a year. I don't think from an offensive standpoint he can handle that. I think defensively he's fantastic. But I also will tell you that I think finding defense-first catchers in the majors is not that tough of a thing to do. There's a lot of guys out there who are great defenders who can't hit a lick. and you can find those guys. They're a dime a dozen at this point in time. There are other options I think that they could look at via trade, and it's something they're gonna have to address long term because they don't have anybody in their system.
Well, no, that's not true. They do have a couple of,
Jimmy
two of their top 6 prospects are catchers. I mean,
yeah,
Jimmy
but
and Leonard Bernal are both pretty highly regarded. So, I mean, I don't know if I would agree with that part. And I don't know if I'm willing to go as far as I'm willing to trade away a piece for the future, potentially for a stopgap catcher when you're putting all of a sudden the weight on.
I wouldn't say stopgap
compared to 1 through 8 in your lineup. I don't agree with that. But I understand where you're coming from. You desperately need offense right now. I'm just saying I don't think that that could be the spot for it. Especially, if it's a stopgap guy, maybe you can have the conversation. But what are you willing to give up for that, and what is even out there?
Nothing.
That's where the conversation happens.
Nothing of major consequence, unless you stopgap would definitely not be worth. They shouldn't trade for anyone stopgap.
Well, then there's no reason trading for a catcher because they have guys in the system that are pretty highly regarded within the system. So it puts you in a tough place right now. I get that, but then I don't see that you adding another catcher to the system all of a sudden makes it way more of a bigger issue.
Sean Murphy.
Oh God.
That's the name. They want to get rid of him.
Yeah, you're going to be giving up a lot. That's for sure.
No way. He's got $45 million on that contract. They'd love to get out from underneath it with Drake Baldwin playing the way he is. That's it. Gorman for Sean Murphy. You heard it here first. Let's do it. The Braves have no interest in getting a left-handed Dan Uggla, but
hey, you got Andre Pallante on the mound tomorrow. He was much better his last time out, as I should say. 6 innings, 2 runs. I know he was a little bumpy at the start, but he recovered really well. That was a really encouraging sign to me. Let's hope that we get that Andre Pallante and that he's able to have some success and the Cardinals are able to right the ship. I mean, it's a tough task now to win the next 2 against a Brewers team that's playing really good baseball right now and to find a way to split this series. But you have to find a way. And let's hope that Andre Pallante is able to build off of his last outing against the team in Toronto that was really hot offensively, and he was able to limit them.
Got it. I mean, they need that because I worry that Jose Quintana is going to be tough on us. I mean, it's just his profile, the soft tossing left stuff. I mean, it's just always been tough. Cardinal fans saw it firsthand here that it can be effective. So, obviously he's a guy that I think the Cardinals got to jump on as quickly as they can, give Pallante a little bit of support, because clearly, this team needs to get going in the right direction. Hopefully Pallante is the stopper. Hopefully they can get past their curse of the soft tossing lefty and get that first of the remaining 2 here in the series. So Ethan, any closing thoughts from you on this one? Cardinals lose their 6th straight, 3-2. Like you said, mentioning they're going to try to get the first of the series tomorrow against Jose Quintana with Andre Pallante on the hill. Your thoughts?
Listen, for all of you guys in the chat, we appreciate you guys joining tonight, sharing your passion, your frustration. Like that's what this is about, right? This is the show for the people, right? And we want your guys' emotions and frustrations to be presented to us and for us to be able to discuss that. So we appreciate all of you being a part of this tonight on the Cards Central Postgame show. My big thing is whether you are whether you are level-minded right now and staying patient, or whether the sky is falling in your eyes. We're gonna be through it all together. So let's hope that the Cardinals can right this ship. They've shown a lot of positive signs in 2025. I know some people have been saying, well, they've been saying be patient for so long. But in my opinion, saying be patient right now is completely different, because now you've seen the fruit and the potential of what it can be. You've seen the cornerstone start to get built. What was in question before was okay, are the veterans going to start get going? Or is the pitching going to turn it around? Or are the young guys going to start to get going? The young guys have started to build that cornerstone of what we feel this can be. And we saw that in May. We saw that what they can be. There was a lot of good competition that they beat down in May. So I'll just say that let's be patient together, but it's not the same sort of patient that has been said and passed on by the organization in past years, in my opinion. This be patient for me means a little bit more, just because of what we've seen from the team so far this year. Ride the wave through some of these young guys, ebbs and flows, and let's hope that they're able to, by the year's end, we're looking and saying like, yeah, they grew a lot this year, and I feel pretty good about about 26.
You know what tomorrow is, Ethan?
I don't know what tomorrow is.
It's Flag Day.
Oh my God, you're right. It is Flag Day tomorrow. Oh boy.
So we will know what we got, according to our good friend Mike Label.
The first checkpoint, right? The first checkpoint. So we'll see.
All right, my friend. Always a good time doing it with you. Thank you very much to all the folks jumping in on the YouTube chat tonight. Cardinals lose 3-2. It is their 6th straight. We got our fingers crossed that tomorrow is a better day. He is Ethan Hannaford. I'm Chris Pelikan. This has been the Cards Central Postgame Show right here on STL Sports Central. We will see you guys tomorrow.